How do you personalize learning? My name is Chad Littlefield. I am a professional speaker and facilitator, and this video is quite unique because I'm going to actually invite you into one of my live keynotes. I recorded it, happened virtually with the National Association of College Stores, NACS, and their conference called CAMX 2021. And so I want, rather than me tell you, here's some advice on how to personalize learning, I want to show you how I did it. As a professional speaker, I've never liked eating canned food, and so I don't serve it up to clients. And so I want you to pay attention in here as the video goes through to all the ways that I kind of tailor my content and presentation to them. The topic that I'm going to be talking about is this idea of connection before content. I'll let the rest of the video speak for itself, but right away after this intro animation plays, you'll see some personalization happening with this question, which I chose as the unofficial star kind of connection before content question to kick things off because there are a bunch of bookstores and campus stores all around the country. As I'll invite the group to do, I want you to ruthlessly steal and reinterpret any of the techniques, ideas, concepts that I use in this keynote and apply them to your own presentations to better personalize learning and make your presentations more interactive. Let's get into it. Starting off with a question that I'm quite curious to see how some of you will answer. As I'm scrolling through gallery view, I'm seeing some of you in your stores and some of you not in your stores, some of you in your homes. And so I'm curious, in the chat, what books on your shelf are begging to be read? And I'll frame up why I wanted to kick off with this question in particular, but what books on your shelf are begging to be read? Power of Now, Start with Why, Simon Sinek. Whoever's wants to read Start with Why, you'll appreciate the way that my session's organized. We're going to talk about the why, how, and what of connection before content. So we take a little bit of love from Simon Sinek's Golden Circle, if any of you are familiar with that. And we're going to organize and get start in the place of like, what's the point of connection before content? But pretty quickly transition into what are the ingredients of connection before content? And then wrap up with like, what do I actually do? I don't know about you, but when I turn up to a session like this, I love when I leave with really practical things that don't take extra time. Okay, so the Everything Store, there's a lot of books that are on people's shelves waiting to be read. And here is my theory of why they're waiting on your shelf to be read. Because we live in a world with too much to do in too little time. Right? I've got a whole bookshelf full of books that I haven't read that I aspire to read at some point, right? But we live in a world with too much to do in too little time. And so I want to be crystal clear as we get rolling here about my intention for our time together. My intention is to share some low-hanging fruit, practical things that you can take back and ruthlessly steal and reinterpret into your own context in a way that doesn't take any extra time. So should you choose to stick around, the chat isn't going to be filled with just like books that people want to read, but it'll actually be filled with some amazing golden nuggets that might be able to increase your store revenue by 5%. That might be able to help you retain those finicky student staff that leave you on a whim or anything else, right? So there's going to be some golden ideas and nuggets because how cool would it be so that Zoom is telling me that 286 human beings are tuned in live, not counting the people who will catch a recording later. And so how cool would it be if we could harvest what is in everybody's brain and put it into our brain? We can't do that, so CAMX exists, right? That's part of the reason that NACS creates and puts so much love and attention and effort in creating an amazing virtual event, which, sidebar, I've been a part of about 100 plus virtual events just in the last year. CAMX is doing you well. NACS is doing you very well. I don't know how many sessions you've had. You've got a really nice experience between Remo and meetings and the featured session and webinars and some amazing content kicked off with Cassandra Worthy. And I caught Jeff Haven's session live. Anyway, you've got some really lovely stuff going on. Okay. So no PowerPoint slides. Some of you, that makes you a little bit nervous. And so instead of PowerPoint slides, I'm going to give you two hats that I'm going to invite you to wear. So the first hat, if you can see that, it does not belong to me, right? It belongs to, and here's proof, it belongs to this little guy. His name is Otto. I'm looking at someone, if you're not switching to gallery view for a minute, I just saw like 125 of you just melt in this moment. And you should, right? He's a very cute little 1-year-old. And the reason I want you to wear his hat in this moment is Otto has a gift that most of us have lost, or not lost, but lost touch with at this point in our life. And it is the gift to just voraciously love the experience of connecting and learning, right? That picture, let's put it up one more time. That picture was actually taken 3 seconds after I showed Otto a plastic potato. We've got this little kitchen set. I literally held up a plastic potato, and that was the grin on his face. If I held up a plastic potato to you, you'd probably just be a bit disappointed and maybe a little bit confused, and you might even be tempted to log off and go check your email, right? And so there's something in his brain that I want you to bring into the next hour that we get to spend together. Just appreciate the connections that happen. There'll be moments where I'll be inviting you off mute to transition. I'll create a little bit of chaos, but a little bit of love as well. So that's number one. Number two, hat number two, and major bonus points and bonus pride to anybody who is wearing this hat by the time I finish describing it. So hat number two looks a little bit like this. And I'm inviting you to wear a pirate hat because pirates are really good at what? Can somebody just unmute? It's all right if it's chaotic a little bit. Unmute. What are pirates particularly good at?
Stealing stuff.
Stealing stuff.
Arrgh! Finding treasure.
All right. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay. So lots of other things too. I suppose some pirates are probably good at sword play and a whole host of things, which I don't care about right now. What I do care about is I'm inviting you to be really good at stealing stuff. And in fact, from this moment forward, I would love for you to ruthlessly steal and reinterpret everything that I say and do and apply it to your own context, right? So my first invite, I've never personally met a pirate, but I imagine a pirate would be a really bad pirate if they showed up to steal a bunch of stuff and they didn't have some sort of container to put it in. Some might call it a treasure chest. So I don't know how you typically take notes or how you typically multitask, but what I would love for you to do right now is draw a box that can fit about 25 to 30 words in it. So a box about this size. If you do that quickly and you're feeling artistic, which I am not, you can turn that box into a treasure box. Okay, the lid I think is in the front of the treasure box there. You get the idea. So you've drawn some box. It could just be a sticky note on your desk. And the reason I'm inviting you to draw that is sometimes, whether it's an in-person or a virtual event, we have an finicky habit as human beings of leaving a session feeling extremely inspired, but a smidge overwhelmed because we live in a world with too much to do in too little time. And so my invite is this entire session, my only ask, my only invitation, my only request is to fill that box that you just drew or that piece of paper that you just got with a minimum of one, but a maximum of 3 things that you want to steal and try out and experiment with and apply into your own context. I want you to answer this question, ideally with something that somebody else on this call might find extremely valuable, right? So ideally something that somebody else on this call might find extremely valuable. I'm going to cue up some music and a 2-minute timer, and you've got 2 minutes to A, type your response to this question into the chat, and B, as soon as you hit send, my invite is rather than letting the chat just disappear and go into the pixelated trash can, go ahead and take the rest of that 2 minutes, and we'll have some time after that to actually scroll up and read the wisdom and ideas and nuggets that are coming out of this group. And so my hope is, right, verbal conversation back and forth, actually, even though it's awesome to be in person at CAMX, verbal conversation is actually one of the slowest ways to transmit information. Amazon has a culture where the first half hour of all their executive meetings start with silence and everybody reading an executive summary or up to a half hour. So literally a bunch of highly paid executives sit in a room and just read something for a half hour, and then they start talking. And I hope that you appreciate this concept, seeing that the context that you're actually working in, right? There is so much magic in the written word. And so here's the question. I won't hold it back anymore. I'll just cue up some kind of thinking instrumental music and a timer for 2 minutes for you to answer this question. What is something you have recently discovered that you're excited about? And if you have We Engage cards, did anybody find the dog picture? If you did, go ahead and hold it up. That's not the dog picture. Go ahead and hold up the dog picture if you've got it. Art, lovely. Stephanie, lovely. Stephanie, would you be willing to unmute and just read what's on the back of that card?
Sure. It says, nothing shapes our lives so much as the questions we ask, refuse to ask, or never dream of asking. Sam Keen.
Lovely. Nothing shapes our lives as much as the questions we ask, refuse to ask, etc. I would say that's true. And little prelude to that. This idea that state matters more than script, I think is true in this moment. It's true when you're in your staff meetings. It's true when you're stressed out, that the state matters more than the agenda of the meeting you're in. It matters more than the exact words that you type in the email, right? The state that you are in when you type an email. And so what I want to do right now, if you have those cards, great. If you don't, grab an object that you can cover up your camera with. We're going to do a little experiment with this idea. So cover up your camera so we can't see you, but we can see our object. Lovely. Nice bowl, Casey. Feel free to be curious. Scroll through a couple pages of gallery view. See what intriguing things people are holding up. Here's what I'd love you to do. While you're covered, I want you to imagine, and we're not going to spend a ton of time here, but I want you to imagine that we rewound to 2020, where you were at one of your toughest moments in your job. One of the moments that was like, ooh, I'm burnt. We're not going to be here for very long, but I want you to go back to that moment. One of the more challenging moments of 2020. What state were you in, right? What state of mind? What were your emotions like? What was your facial expressions actually like? Right? What were your facial expressions like? What was your posture like in that moment? And I want you to be in that state, change your facial expressions to actually as you were in that state, one of the more challenging moments of 2020. And on the count of 3, I'm going to ask you to remove that object and be in that state to the camera. And look at where everybody's at. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Yeah. Tina, Jenny, you're like almost falling out of the chair. Right. So let's not be in there very long. So shake that off. Cover up your camera one more time. Yeah, shake it off. If you actually need to shake it off, feel free to. Now, what I'd love you to do is imagine that y'all have been participating in different levels of Chemex for the last 3 days. I want you to imagine that you are in the highlight moment of Chemex. And on the count of 3, so think about your facial expressions, your emotions, your posture, if there were actions happening. And in 3, 2, 1, be in that state. Yeah. Adam, a big lovely smile. Jenny's now got thumbs up. Feel free, scroll through gallery view, especially if you're on a mobile device. You can see 2 people. Scroll through and see a couple of these faces. See if you can find somebody who you love, who's a part of NACS that you used to love seeing in person. See if you can find their face and where they're at. Just kind of scroll through and look for each other for a moment. Even now, right? The exercise is over. It was like, okay, Chad, I don't really know exactly where we're going for this, but I'm tuned in. I'm checking it out. Okay, I'm with you, right? Even though the exercise is over, right? The facade is kind of dropped. The shape, as I'm looking around, the shape of most of your faces is awfully curved, right? Or the shape of most of your mouths is awfully curved. And I think this is the power embedded within what Shasta Nelson was talking about yesterday, about the power of connection, right? Something in this moment, it's not it wasn't my reaction that caused that smile, right? Even after I was like, okay, yeah, you're not in that state, you're not in that moment. I'm looking around and half of you were like, that's kind of interesting. I've never done that on Zoom, right? There's this little joy. And what I would say is that some percentage of your pixels and your state teleported through the camera into somebody else's reality. And that's pretty cool. And that is the power of what connection before content can create. So Google did this massive research project in the quest to find what are the characteristics of the highest performing teams at Google. And what they found was not that it was like the perfect Myers-Briggs StrengthsFinder personality match. It wasn't the years of technical experience that somebody had on the team. It was the number one characteristic of high-performing teams at Google was the degree of psychological safety in that team, which is really Amy Edmondson from Harvard's PhD academic language for interpersonal trust. When I show up to work, can I be myself? And if the answer is no, psychological safety is low. I would say that connection before content has to have 3 ingredients in order to actually qualify. So connection before content is not an icebreaker, right? It's not something you do to like warm up a group in the beginning. Connection before content is a little bit more intentional than that. I'm gonna skip number 1. I think it's actually the most often missed, but the most important. So we're gonna save that best for last. The second ingredient is you gotta connect people to each other. That's interesting, right? If I were to ruthlessly misinterpret and apply that, connecting customers to each other, connecting customers to, do I connect staff to? That's interesting. Easy to apply in a staff context, right? Building staff culture, right? Because if the more of a culture connection you can create, the less likely your staff is to leave, unless they're graduating. Fair enough, right? You're gonna have some built-in turnover in a higher ed environment. The third one is it's gotta create space, or I might actually even edit this word out, and it's gotta create choice for authenticity and vulnerability. So cannot and shouldn't force it, but it's gotta create at least the option or choice for authenticity or vulnerability. If you try to force connection on anybody, not good, right? Not good. And some of you may have experienced this dynamic. One of the best examples as I was preparing for our time together that I've seen, I don't know if you all have seen this, throw me some thumbs up for those of you on video if you have seen this before. Have you all seen this? These two containers, right? So you walk into a store, one bag says, please help me, I need assistance, I'm carrying the pink bag. And another one says, I got it, don't bother me. That for me is a really concrete and kind of cool example of meeting this third criteria of giving people the choice and the option to connect. One really cheap, easy, free way to train your staff and to build a culture of is to invite people to ask questions. Here is why questions by nature, right, meet this third criteria is a question is like a key that unlocks something inside somebody's lifetime of ungoogleable experience. Connecting to the purpose. This is what most icebreakers miss, right? Most icebreakers are like, hey, let's get to know each other, let's connect. And sometimes that's not enough of a reason for the critics, curmudgeons, and consumers to buy in to whatever it is that you're doing, right? So when you connect to purpose, it is one of the strongest, most effective ways to invite critics and consumers to become contributors and connectors. Now we're getting really messy here. Oh my goodness. So as we're doing research for the book, we pulled together every ounce of research that we could find on the planet of how many questions people tend to ask. And one of the funky things that we found, let's just scroll down a little bit here, is that kids between the ages of 3 and 5 ask between 300 and 400 questions per day. Anybody of you who have kids or have grandkids probably know that to some degree. 300 to 400 questions per day. This is going to be a chaotic unmute invitation, but go ahead and find your unmute button. Can you all just shout out your guess of how many questions adults ask per day? Not in the chat. Unmute.
20.
20.
15.
10.
30.
100.
46.
50.
150.
150, Dunbar's number. Okay, pause. Lovely. Okay, so I learned once, I haven't actually verified this. I need to check out this research, but there was some research on a book called Group Genius that, you know, when people guess the amount of jelly beans like in a jar, I've been told that if you collect 1,000 responses to that, 1,000 guesses, the average of everyone's response is almost exactly right, which is kind of interesting. So I don't know, I'm not that good at math to do the average of these real quick, but I do know that on average, adults ask between 6 and 12 questions per day. And in your context, they might be really content related and not connection related. They might be like, where'd you put this? Or is this done, right? Bring you back to this model, right? The easiest, cheapest way that takes 30 seconds or less while you're walking to a meeting or finding the Zoom link for the meeting intention, the tool that we share here, is to get crystal clear about what your intention is and share it with the group. And here's why. The Latin root of the word intention actually means to stretch. So the way I think about intention is like a rubber band or an elastic that stretches over the whole group and pulls people together. A goal or an objective is something you as the store director have that you hope everybody else falls into. An intention has a little bit more empathy than that. It says, what is this other person needing right now? What do they care about? What's important to them? And how can I state the intention for this gathering, for the staff meeting, for whatever it is, to invite them into my context, to invite them to play the same game. But I'll end officially with this. So one of the cards in We Engage cards has this prompt. Choose a card that represents a future you would like to create. If you don't have the cards, replace the word card with object. And so I would love right now, flip through the deck or go around your space and find an object that represents a future that you want to create for 2021. On the count of 3, go ahead and hold up the object that you grabbed that represents a future you want to create. Hold up that object. Oh, love it. Stephanie, a picture of books. Eat, drink, relax, beach. KC, I'm in with that. Some people are still coming back. Yeah, go ahead and scroll through. Find some of the objects that are there. I know that we're not together at CAMX in person, but we are absolutely together at CAMX. We just happen to be a little bit pixelated. Oh, my goodness. I lost the question, what are you grateful for? I need to organize my desk better. I think I got overly excited in our session today. My desk is like full tornado mode. And if any of you are still doing a lot of meetings on Zoom, mute applause looks like this. This is Australian Sign Language for applause. It's also American Sign Language, but it sounds way cooler when you tell people it's Australian Sign Language. But you'll see 3 prompts up in my corner here as a way of unofficially wrapping up with your voices. And we can let this go for a handful of minutes. I'd invite you to come off mute in a moment and make a closing statement. The only catch is that I'm going to invite that closing statement to only begin with one of 3 phrases. Either I am, I believe, or I will.
I am excited about the opportunities ahead.
I will uncrapify my future.
I will ask more questions and listen better.
I will listen more and I will ask more questions.
I will be present. Steve, I love it. Carrie, don't try to be more like Chad Littlefield. Bad idea. All lowercase, so don't have your caps locks on. So all lowercase letters. Can you go ahead and type a question that you would love to ask, love to bring into the collective conversation? Type a question that you would love to ask in all lowercase letters in the chat and hit send. Can you help connect with male administrators that find you either too strong or too put off by your expertise and strength?
It's a constant.
Yeah. Put more females in positions of leadership?
That's the answer, Chad. Yeah, that's the answer I want.
All right, so a couple more questions. How do you combat the stereotype against being vulnerable, authentic? This is such a valuable question, Sarah. One, I probably don't use those words in public all that much. And if I do, I guess I forgot to in our keynote, but if I do, I typically define them by saying authenticity and vulnerability is not like, hey, let's get around and hold hands and sing Kumbaya and share our deepest secrets. Authenticity and vulnerability is, do you feel comfortable being yourself at work? Or when you put on your uniform or your shirt or whatever else, do you also need to put on a mask? That would be the way that I would break that down and just say like, no. Authenticity and vulnerability is actually telling the truth and remembering that you have choice in what truth you share. Rob, any last beautiful words?
Yes, Chad, you need to show what is on the other side of that triangle. We're all dying to know.
The book. You mean this? Yeah, it's just the book. Yeah, there's nothing else there. So in the
it was hey, a triangle has 3 sides.
I love it. Let me see if I can find this real quick. So in each chapter, it's just 2D printed, so you can't see the third side. This pyramid only has 2 sides, as far as I'm concerned, in the actual book. That's awesome.
Thanks everybody for attending. We appreciate everybody. Have fun at the trade show.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.